So something that can to be considered about elements of music is their politics. And politically speaking, if you're a non-hierarchic biased person like me, a whole lot of the things that are really basic to beginning in music are hugely hierarchic. Musical form. This not a form does this. Or especially the tunings and stuff like that is rigidly dismissive of all else and boom, and this goes here and that goes there and this goes there and that goes there. Read your Gradus and Parnassum and learn basic Western harmony. Anyway, these things all have implicit politics in them, and it's important to remember that no matter what you're doing, you're going to be subconsciously, subliminally, whatever you want to call it, expressing the politics of the forms and the things that you use. Even if you want to write a really anti-establishment song and you play it, you do a 3-chord GCD thing, you're kind of reaffirming this old hierarchy, right? It's like there's an implicit there's an implicit acceptance of status quo in this song about how rebellious you're being against the status quo. And this is something that the second generation of punks, which I was more part of than the first generation of punks, they started understanding this. I give big props to Black Flag and No Means No and the Minutemen, my fave, and Swans and stuff like that broke down the music too, as well as just voicing complaints about society using status quo music, which is more like early punk was basically pop that didn't care about how it sounded as much, that wasn't cleaned up and pristine. They let some wart show, like Sex Pistols songs are basic pop songs, and the Clash just did this kind of they did that kind of stuff all the time, and use these same chord progressions that everybody else had always been using, and use the same kind of things, but I'm not knocking that. As I'm just saying that you kind of, if you're a musical artist, you should try to undermine the status quos within that too. It's the great painters undermine, Picasso came along and broke down the whole concept of composition and point of view and stuff like that. It's I think music has more growth when it does that too, And so we should think about what elements we're using and what they are implying, as well as what we're directly expressing, what is implicit in this thing. So if you're, really want to be a rebel and stuff like that, I totally got your back. Rebel formally too, and rebel elementally as well. So on to the next thing about that, harmony, harmony, tonal relationships, pitch sets and, tonal fields, whatever you want to call them. What are they? Are they these limited, members-only clubs you know, which is like the equal temperament is a limited club. You know, if it was a golf club, it wouldn't let any black folks in it, or, you know, we don't want Jews in here or whatever. You know, it would be that kind of club. It says this is all there is. If you use anything else, you're wrong. You know, and so whenever you use this, you're kind of buying into that a little bit. And like, if that's all you've got to work with, fine, do it. You know, like, you know, make music, always make music, you know, but be conscious of that. Be conscious that, you know, this pitch field that you're using, and, you know, this set of structures that you're using are, you know, this members only, restricted access, gated community kind of place, you know. And if you really want to break that down, bust out of that, you know, break that up, find the note between these two and just stick it in there. You know, may sound awful, you know, find a way to make it sound good, like they all can sound good, you know. I like to think that my sense of harmony is, instead, it would be anarcho-syndicalist, you know, and that is, you develop consensus, you know, and let them, you know, the pitches that you have to use, let them find what kind of harmony works for them. And it doesn't have to be this one, you know. It'll probably have, no matter what you do, you're going to have elements in common, you know. You know, some things are just really basic and will pop up in any music, anywhere, at any time, as you're always going to have these kind of relationships, you know. They're like, you know, physically, acoustics just like kind of push you toward those. So yeah, don't, you know, it would be equally stupid to like never use those, right? Anyway, yeah, just in a nutshell, that's like, you know, we should think about the elements of music, which are, you know, pitch relationships and meters. You know, we should think about those in ways that go more to our politics, you know, like, we should express what we want to express, like, all the way down. You know, that should be in the elements that we use, as well as in the, you know, the glosses we put on it. I personally have been avoiding, I listen to lots of songs, you know, and lots of singers, and in a musical sense, a lot of times, and this is true of things like The Clash. I really love The Clash, like, you know, really love them a lot. You know, Joe is just the shit in my book. But a lot of times, thinking about it as a piece of art, what's happening is the words are applying a gloss to the form, and the form is status quo. You know, a song like Safe European Home is really just a rousing, good pop song, and you know, and what he's saying isn't about that, you know. And I remember listening to that one day, and I like that, you know, and I'm listening to it one day, and I'm going, but dude, this chord progression is the safest European home you could have, you know. And my European home, you know. And I just got back and I wish I'd never been gone. You know, and in a way that's folksy and stuff like that, but if you really want to take apart the safe European home, don't use the safe European chord progression, right? You know, like, you know, as it went along, by the time they got to Sandinista, they were busting that up a lot more and, you know, doing what they could. But here's the thing for you know, the musicians, the, you know, players of instruments, the non-singers, the people like, give the singers and the wordsmiths something else to work with, right? You know, like break them out of that 4/4, you know, so that all the poems don't sound the same, and, you know, break them out of the major minor shit, you know, like that's kind of our job as we're providing like pitch fields and meters and stuff for them to use and forms, you know, break them out of that, you know, and work with them, you know, don't make them make it up, right? They're working on the words, and, you know, poets are, you know, at least as creative as you know, sonic artists are, you know. But it's something I really think that we need to address at some point, like culturally speaking, if we want to have autonomy in our culture, if that's what we're, you know, striving toward as humans, as artists, as whatever. Let's break that kind of cultural hegemony, you know. Those who know Gramsci, you know, I'm a fan of Gramsci. Those who know Gramsci will understand that it's really culture that oppresses us. We can look at it as like, oh, they're these bad guys, you know, and they might be capitalists, or they might be militarists, or they might be fascists, or whatever, and see it as this thing, you know. And if we just got rid of them, we'd be fine. But the thing that really oppresses us is that culturally we're stuck. And, you know, one could say that one reason that, you know, the Clash didn't lead this great, you know, punk uprising rebellion was that they had this safe European chord progression going on underneath their thing, so that people still had an acceptance of the culture to go back to. And it's worth for us that care about this kind of shit to think about what ways we can undermine this, you know? How can we break out of this? And you know, if we're breaking out of this, are we breaking out of this like still reaffirming what we're trying to get away from or not? And if we want to make a different culture, we'll have to like make elements of that culture to build upon, you know, as you know, we're kind of not gonna make a new culture out of like the same old shit that came from the old culture, you know. We can use a lot of their stuff, you know, recycle, yes, you know, reuse. But challenge all its defaults, you know, and, you know, it's harder work, you know. I mean, there's nothing easier than writing a protest song that, you know, goes to these chords, you know. You know, that's the easiest thing in the world, and everybody will learn your song because it's totally simple, and they don't even have to think about it because they've heard 10 zillion songs that have that same thing in it, you know. I think 50% of all Bob Dylan songs have that progression, you know, and they're great songs, and he's a great poet, and, you know, well worth listening to and learning. But there's something in there that embeds you back into what you're trying to get away from. And there's something lazy in that, you know. It's musically lazy, and, you know, to me, a songwriter, a singer-songwriter kind of person, like, I give them a pass on being lazy about you know, deep structures of music and, you know, all that stuff. They have another job. Their job is to like write poems and set them up and sing them so that you'll remember the lines. And okay, you know, that's their job. Like, but we are musicians, like, we shouldn't be lazy about that too. You know, like, we should be giving them places to go with their songwriting, right? Anyway, yeah, meh.